Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Hello and welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Niall and our friend over in the States, Thomas. We're here in big fight breakdown mode, and we're here to discuss Isaac Pitbull Cruz against Lamont Roach in an intriguing fight. Styles always make fights. It's a bit of a cliche, but I definitely think we've got two different styles that should make for a good fight. As always, guys, there'll be plenty of content coming out surrounding this card, surrounding this fight. So as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Chaps, as I said, it's an interesting fight. It could be one where one style takes over and is far too dominant for the other. I'm going to start with you, Niall. Lamont Roach, a good fighter. Obviously he had that draw with Tank, which was highly controversial. And obviously we'll come on to Thomas how controversial that was in the States. What level do you think Lamont Roach is at, Niall? Because Tank has had an interesting career, to put it in the nicest possible and PG way. A lot of people thought, he was going to be a superstar, knocking people out left, right, and centre. A lot of people felt Lamont Roach won that fight, so not taking anything away from the result and the current state of Tank. What level do you think Lamont Roach is at, and what level can he get to?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's undoubted that he's world class. He is world class. Definitely the most proven, obviously, at super featherweight. I'm a big fan of Lamont Roach. I think he's highly skilled, and I think he's tough. He can grit it out and he can box. He can do a bit of both when needed. But yeah, it's a strange one. Moved up to 135, as you say, and proved there, in a fight that he was, widely expected to lose that. And if we're being honest, he won that. Well, he should have won that fight. That should have been a Lamont Roach win, especially with the knockdown that wasn't given, or the knee that Tank Davis took, I should say, that somehow the referee didn't call as a knockdown. And if that was called, he wins the fight. So he should have won the fight. Um, as you said, what headspace was Gervonta Davis in there is highly up for debate, but you know, Lamont Roach proved a lot of people wrong. And now again, he's up another weight class for this one, to 140, which I'm very curious to see how he gets on. But yeah, I think it's undoubted that he is world class. Just doesn't have the standout official win on his record to kind of prove it yet. But I think skill set wise, he's right up there for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much everything you said there. I think regardless of Tank's status, whereabouts, what he's doing inside boxing, outside of boxing, if Lamont Roach had have got that decision, it's a huge, huge name on his CV that, with Lamont Roach, obviously he's only got that one loss, which was Jamal Herring, which again is no shame. Jamal Herring, a very good fighter, world champion. So that's what it is. Thomas, what do you think? What level do you think Lamont Roach is at, and how is he perceived in the States? Obviously, as Niall said, he probably is a world-class operator. Is he seen as being that world-class operator over in the States?
Well, one thing's for sure, like after that Gervonta Davis fight, he's definitely become like obviously not a, a much more known commodity in boxing, but just over here in like the sports world in general, like the casual sports world, people know him off of that performance. Obviously, he didn't win, but many people thought that he did. And like Niall said, he really should have if that knockdown would have been counted. Um, but that's a different story. But either way, yeah, Lamont Roach definitely made a name for himself, not just in the boxing world, but in the casual sports world too, because a lot of eyes were on Gervonta Davis, and for someone to come in and almost upset him or seemingly upset him, a lot of eyes are going to be on that fighter too. So I think that's what's happening with Lamont Roach, and like Niall said, I think he's absolutely world class. I wasn't so sure in the beginning, with that loss to Herring, but I think he's shown that, that was a thing of the past. He was very green back then, and now I mean, he's just now entering his prime. So yeah, I really do think he's world level.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say as well. Obviously, you've got to remember he's only 28. So in boxing terms, he's still a baby. You know, he could easily have another 8 to 10 years in the game, and comfortably at that. I think myself, like a lot of people, I always find it hard to back against Tank because of that power. Um, and I did back him to get Lamont Roach out of there. I wasn't necessarily surprised at the level of performance from Lamont Roach, but it's hard. Like it wasn't a shock, but it was at the same time. He's obviously a classy operator, but it's always the question marks. Can he do that against Tank? Now he's gone in against Tank. Obviously should have won, didn't. Now he fights Isaac Cruz. Sticking with yourself, Thomas. Isaac Cruz obviously carries power, nowhere near as much power as Tank Davis. I think Lamont Roach is naturally a much better boxer in terms of skill set. So do you think Isaac Cruz has the power to stop Lamont Roach?
I don't think so, to be honest. I don't really consider Isaac Cruz to be like this monstrous puncher. I mean, obviously you can score stoppages, knockouts and stuff, but um, he's more so of a just volume overwhelm you,
Mhm.
rough you up type guy. He's not so much of a one punch knockout guy. So I don't think if Gervonta Davis can't get Roach out of there, I don't think that Isaac Cruz will be able to either. And again, also too, if you even if he did have that power, you got to be able to land it. And I question, how successful Isaac Cruz is going to be able to be in landing punches that night.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Obviously, Isaac Cruz is not a one punch knockout artist, but if you look at the majority of his KOs, like you say, it is the volume. Obviously, he does pack a punch and does carry an element of power, but it's more the amount of punches and the magnitude as I'm landing. Same question to you, Niall, and also sort of a slight addition based off what Thomas said. Do you think Isaac Cruz has got the power from the punches and bunches to stop Lamont Roach and can it's almost based off like Thomas said, can he get those punches landed or will Lamont Roach prove to be too elusive?
Yeah, like without the kind of the want of sounding like I'm copying Thomas. Thomas hit the nail on the head there for me. I think not so much that his power is kind of overrated because nobody really claims him to be a huge kind of destructive puncher. He's an
Mhm.
aggressive fighter. He'll drown you, he'll come forward, he won't stop throwing. But in terms of his power, he doesn't have the one shot power of a Tank Davis. So you'd like to think kind of not based on that on paper. Like you'd like to imagine that he doesn't have the power to knock Lamont Roach out because of the shots that Lamont Roach took off Tank and didn't get stopped. But the one kind of caveat to this fight that I am looking forward to seeing is although Cruz is a former lightweight himself, this is up at 140 now. So, will that kind of £5 be the difference, from a natural super featherweight really and Lamont Roach going up again to 140? But yeah, Isaac Cruz, he will have a chance to hurt, a lot of people if he gets the shots off. But yeah, without giving a prediction away, kind of your question that can he land the shots? It's going to be hard. And it's undoubtedly Lamont Roach is the far superior boxer here. But I think if he can put it on him early, don't let him kind of utilize that movement and those angles. I think it's his chance of success here will be to put a dent in Lamont Roach early. So you never know, but if I had to pick, I'd say it's unlikely that he would have the power to kind of get him out there,
Yeah, I think it's more than fair to say, like you say, the weight could potentially be a slight issue, but I think based off the previous performance, I don't personally think it will factor too much. But it is always an element. And I think style wise, Lamont Roach it's going to be it's going to make it very difficult for Isaac Cruz to come in and be the Pitbull that he is. For Isaac Cruz, Niall, is this his last chance at world honours? Although obviously he's not by any stretch of the imagination finished in the sport of boxing, but do you think this could be potentially the last chance especially if Lamont Roach is convincing and if he wins?
Yeah, I think, if, as you said there, if it's a convincing Lamont Roach win, I think it will be kind of a long way back, especially in such a good division at the minute. A very kind of stacked division at 140, it's going to be hard to get himself back in the mix. He's an interesting fighter. He's always a fun watch. But he does have massive limitations as a fighter when he's in there with somebody who can expose them. He's drastically exposed at times. So I'll always kind of find it fun watching him, whoever he's in against. If it's the right stylistic opponent. But yeah, I think it'd be a long way back down the queue if he was to lose this, especially mentioned the weight again, against somebody coming up from 130 really, 135, 130, somebody coming up. I can't see many people looking to fight Isaac Cruz if he doesn't get the job done here.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue is just picking up on what you said at the end there is he's obviously he hasn't got that one punch knockout power, but if you get him on a good night, he is aggressive. Obviously he's got the Pitbull nickname for a reason, and if you catch him on one of his better nights, if you're an up and coming fighter or someone who's looking to bridge the gap from the top 15 to the top 10, it's a it's a it's a sort of it's a high risk, low-ish reward fighting Isaac Cruz because if Lamont Roach schools him, which I think without giving my prediction away, there's every possibility it could happen. Then if someone goes in and gets stopped or, if they lose on points, how does that look? So I think that's more than fair to say. And Thomas, do you agree? Do you think it's a long way back and a long old road for Isaac Cruz to be in and around world honours should he lose to Lamont Roach, or do you think that he'll sort of not necessarily that his name holds weight in the division, but even if he loses, he'll still be hovering around that level?
I definitely don't think that he will get like another chance at like a world title. But I do think that yeah, he will probably be around. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a fun fighter to watch. But yeah, I think one thing we've noticed already, but just like Niall said, is that he has a very limited skill set.
Mhm.
And I hate to say it, is fairly one-dimensional. I mean, that one thing, like being aggressive and throwing a lot of punches, and I mean, he does it very well and very intelligently, of course. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be somebody out there in that weight class who can exploit that and outbox him. And so, yeah, I don't see him ever winning a world title ever again, especially if he can't beat Lamont Roach.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, especially like Niall said with the weight as well. Lamont Roach coming up in the weights that always looks very negative on the fighter that loses. There'll be questions of, like Niall said, how will Lamont Roach fare at the weight? Is the extra £5 going to make a difference? Obviously, that's all to be seen on fight night. Gents, it's that time in the video. Time for predictions. Thomas, who wins this fight and how?
I'll go with Lamont Roach by decision. Um, I see him being fairly dominant, looking pretty good. I think it should be a fun fight, though. I do think it's a very fun stylistic clash. Think that Isaac Cruz maybe he'll win a few rounds, and make it fun, but I think that at the end of the day, Roach will come out on top and look very good in doing so. So yeah, Roach by decision.
That's 1-0 to Lamont Roach via a decision. Niall, is it 1-1 or is it 2-0 to Lamont Roach?
I'm going 2-0. I think the big kind of, as I say, it's been a theme throughout this video. The weight, it could be one weight, one step too far for Lamont Roach in terms of, moving up weights. I think Isaac Cruz would have to get at him early, don't let him breathe, really make that kind of advantage count, as the more fully fledged 140 pounder to do it early. But I just think, as I say, as fun as Isaac Cruz is to watch, if he's in there with somebody who can expose his flaws, he's very one-dimensional and very limited. And I think Lamont Roach could be the perfect person to expose that, with his movement, his hand speed, his boxing IQ. And I'm going for a decision win. Not drastically wide, but I think it'll be convincing enough. I just think he won't play Cruz's game like the likes of a Fierro did twice. Those type of stylistic matchups. I think it'll be more like the Valenzuela fight. Who we keep it long, use those angles, don't engage, and yeah, I just think he'll be too clever for Isaac Cruz here. And boxing IQ wins the day over the aggression of the Pitbull for me.
Yeah, unfortunately, guys, I'm going to make it 3-0. And I'm agreeing it's going to be on points as well. I think when you look at Tank, couldn't get Isaac Cruz out of there. I don't think Lamont Roach will be getting him out of there either. I think as both all three of us pretty much have said, I think Lamont Roach will expose Isaac Cruz's skill set. I think it will be fairly wide myself. I think it will still be a fun fight. I think Cruz will make it interesting. But I think I think there's a very, very good chance Cruz could start getting desperate, go looking for the knockout, try and land the big shots. Not necessarily get caught, but be getting picked off as he tries to step in. And it'll be a fairly unanimous decision for um, Lamont Roach, maybe like a 116, 112 around that mark. But as always, guys, let us know down below in the comments what you think. Can Isaac Cruz get the victory? Does it have to be stoppage, or do you agree with ourselves over at ESBR Boxing that Lamont Roach is going to be victorious via points? As always, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and chat. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Cheers. Take care.